Welcome to Tulsa Time with Bishop Conderlip. My name's Derek Lissy, and I am your host. And today on Tulsa Time, we have some special guests. We have Father Kiet Nguyen and also Deacon Alan Michael, who sort of head up our prison ministry for the diocese. So welcome. It's great to have you guys.
Yes, absolutely. Awesome. But let's begin with our gospel here, again from the Gospel of Luke for the seventh Sunday in Ordinary Time that's coming up. Jesus said to his disciples, "To you who hear, I say, love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who mistreat you. To the person who strikes you on one cheek, offer the other one as well. And from the person who takes your cloak, do not even withhold your tunic. Give to everyone who asks of you, and from the one who takes what is yours, do not demand it back. Do to others as you would have them do to you. For if you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners love those who love them. And if you do good to those who do good to you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners do the same. If you lend money to those from whom you expect repayment, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners and get back the same amount. But rather, love your enemies and do good to them, and lend, expecting nothing back. Then your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High, for He Himself is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful. Stop judging, and you will not be judged. Stop condemning, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Give, and gifts will be given to you, a good measure, packed together, shaken down, and overflowing will be poured into your lap. For the measure with which you measure will in return be measured out to you." It's a really, it's a challenging gospel, but I think that most of the reason why we hear this gospel and say, wow, this is really tough, is precisely because of what Jesus is trying to break down here. A kind of entitlement mentality that builds up within us, forgetting that God is the reason we have a breath. Sometimes I've suggested to people a great prayer, a great way to pray, a great form of prayer. If you can sit in a quiet place, like in an adoration chapel, and if you can put your thumb on your pulse and find it, sometimes you can't find it, you think you're dead. If you can find your pulse and sit in meditation on your pulse, and the fact that you didn't start it, and one day it will stop, and you don't know when that day is, and everything before it and everything during it and everything after it is all gift of God. So the more that we maintain a tight connection with how blessed we are, how much is given to us that we don't deserve. Think of every time we've gone to confession. We never deserve to be forgiven for our sins. God forgives us out of His love and His mercy. The more that we maintain a tight connection to that, the more grateful we will be. And the more grateful we are, the more these things won't seem as daunting. They'll seem easier. We frequently talk about cautions about social media and the internet and all the things that go on today. Well, this is another reason to be cautious about all that, because the kinds of negativity and the kinds of cynicism and backbiting and and snarky comments and all those kinds of things that we typically run across in the news cycles and on the internet and so forth. Those kinds of things feed all of this. They don't help us to break it down. So better to spend more time in prayer and in the Gospels and the Catechism and the lives of the saints, etc. If you do look for news, you can Google search good news that happened today. If you Google search that, it'll throw up a bunch of articles about good things that are going on, but that you otherwise won't see. Yeah. So some thoughts.
Yeah, that's great. I always think that this is interesting. To the person who strikes you on one cheek, offer the other one as well.
Yeah, let me.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's what I'm like. I'm like, oh man. But I just think that that's interesting. That was like one thing that kind of stuck out to me as I was going through it this time. But I think that oftentimes thinking about my own intention. That's what I was going through. My own intention when I do good deeds, when I do things. What is my intention? What am I hoping for? Am I hoping for some recognition? Am I hoping to making somebody smile, or am I truly listening to the Lord? Am I serving Him in what I'm doing? So, anyways, those are just some of my thoughts.
Yeah, excellent.
This is a great gospel for the prison ministry. I think you go into the prison, and no matter why they're in there, no matter what they've done, they're people, they're guys, right? And they just want somebody to listen to them.
Yeah.
They want somebody to listen to them and give them a fair shake. And golden rule, do to others as you would have them do to you. You know, that's got to be the attitude.
Yeah.
And my attitude when I go in there, no matter what the situation is, I try to do this, and that's meet them where they are. Meet them where they are and work from there. So,
well, it's a powerful witness within the diocese that we have a prison ministry at all. There's a team of about 10 or 12 individuals with 5 priests or so who every Friday make sure that Mass is offered here in the Tulsa County Jail. And there we see 25 to 35 men who come to the men's Mass, and significantly less than that, usually, a number of women who come to the women's Mass, typically bilingual in the populations. But Oklahoma, because we have this commercial prison system, it means that we in Oklahoma have the highest per capita incarcerated population in the country. They're not all Oklahomans, but they're from everywhere because we have commercial prisons. And so it's really important that we are able to offer this ministry. As people drive around the state, you don't typically see the prisons. They're not all in places where they're on main highways or places where you would see, but they're out there, and there's a bunch of them. And, you know, a way for people to connect with this, if you think about someone whose life is filled with chaos from the time they're a child, they may be coming up in a broken home. They may have drug-addicted family members who are, quote, raising them. They may have simply chaos in their life. They grow up with that all the way up until something happens that causes them to be arrested. Well, that chaos that they've been growing in is sort of like a tornado spinning around them until they're incarcerated. Now they've been through the court system, they've had a trial, they've been sentenced, and now they're in prison. That may be the first time for some of them that they've ever had weeks and months at a time without all this chaos, for them to be able to think, who am I? What's going on with me? Where am I going? Is this what I want for myself? And so imagine yourself in that circumstance, and you come to the conclusion, I don't want this. I don't want to live this way. But here I am. I'm in this place, and I'm going to be here for these years. Now, what do I do? That's where the prison ministry really comes in, because someone who can come in and visit with them, talk to them, help them to live in the craziness that is the prison setting. Father Kit is, for our diocese, full-time in the ministry. Most dioceses probably don't have a full-time prison minister. So Father Kit is going every day into these prisons all around, especially in the southern part of the diocese. So we appreciate his work very much.
Yeah. Father Kit, what's your experience been like serving in this capacity, serving the men and women who are incarcerated?
Frankly, when I got assigned to the prison ministry full time, I was a little bit shocked, even though I did that since 1997 with Father Donald Brook.
Mm-hmm.
But at that time, I was at the parish and just do the part-time with that one, and now go with the full-time for that, a little bit shocked. However, after some prayer, meditation, and reflection, I thought that, okay, there's people out there, the outcast, still need me.
Yes.
And in the first 3 months, when it came over, so it's a little bit not very accustomed for that. But after the 3 months, so I really appreciate the assignment and appreciate about the atmosphere and the feeling of the inmate.
Yeah.
Because over there, we can see that they hungry for the word of God. They hungry for the body and blood of Jesus Christ. And they hungry for someone to listen to them and also to give them hope. And also someone, or just simply someone who accompany with them. Even though I be there once in a while or at every time, about once a week or whatever, but they always appreciate the presence of the Catholic priest over there.
Yeah. And one of the fruits of having someone who's able to be full-time in this role is Father Kit is able to develop these deeper relationships with the prison employees, the wardens, the guards, the people that work there. And the fruit of that recently was Father Kit being able to organize a mass on death row for one of the inmates. There's currently, as you told me, one Catholic inmate on death row in McAllister. And so Father Kit was able to organize a mass for this inmate on death row. So, the prison, that particular unit especially, is naturally very tightly controlled. And so when the prison wardens and the guards and the people that work there can develop a relationship with someone so they know what to expect of them, then they're more open to letting things like that happen. Because, when you're in prisons, you're at their, you're doing things the way they say to do them. We had a Project Rachel retreat one time when I was in Texas. We did one of our Project Rachel post-abortion healing retreats in a state prison, a women's prison. And, those retreats are intensely emotional. The grief that the women are working through is just really deep and raw. And yet, in the midst of our going through the various exercises and the women opening up and sharing their abortion experience and so forth, which is usually just a really important part, the guards may come in and say, all right, everybody out, count. And they're going to do a count because they do regular and sometimes irregular, unscheduled counts to make sure everyone's where they're supposed to be.
Right.
And so you just have to stop what you're doing, and everybody goes out. Father Allen is helping us to...
Deacon Allen.
Thank you.
He is also... His kids call him Father Allen.
Promotion from the bishop on the podcast.
Deacon Allen is helping us to bring to the diocese the Colby retreat, which is coming to us from Texas. So you might tell us a little about that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, the Colby group started in Texas as an offshoot of the Acts retreat. And the patron saint is Maximilian Kolbe, who died in a concentration camp. And it's similar to Acts, but based on what Bishop said, you're going into the warden's house. So there's some things we can bring in. There's some things we cannot bring in or do. So, but it's the only Catholic retreat for a prison that I know of in the country. So it's we've done 2 in the western Oklahoma, in the Archdiocese. And now we're doing our first one in Tulsa Diocese this year, down at Allen Gamble. And there'll be 42 inmates that participate as retreatants. There will be an inside team of probably 10 more inmates that will serve their brothers and help the outside team to put this thing on. But it's all predicated on the faith of the Catholic Church, which is unique because they don't hear much about the Catholic Church in prison, although a significant number of them were probably baptized as Catholics. So it's exciting. It's the first of what we hope will be many more. I think we're going to do another one in the western part of the state this year also. So it's going to be interesting. It's really going to be interesting.
And Deacon, you've been able to serve in the prison ministry, doing retreats and other activities now for years. Maybe you could just speak to some of the unique challenges that are in the prisons as you serve. Bishop touched on a few of them that are more practical. They do a count or whatever it may be. But how do you navigate those difficulties? How do you do that?
Well, Bishop hit the nail, the hammer. It's you do what they tell you to do, and whatever they tell you to do, you end up working around it, quite frankly. But if you think about it, for the inmates, no matter what they do, they're used to that because they never know what's going to happen next. So it's really us. It's the outside team that has to deal with it more than the prisoners because it's just another day.
Right. It's old hat.
Yeah. They know the drill. But each prison has a chaplain. And quite honestly, for us to get into the prison, we've got to go to the chaplain first. So we usually have the chaplain support in a paramount way, really, before we ever get there. And it really makes a lot of difference. They know what we're trying to do. We understand what they're trying to accomplish, what they have to do. And so you just work it out. Quite frankly, you just work it out. And it does. It works. No matter what's going on, you can make it work if you're just patient. So
we had a deacon who was a chaplain for the prison in Gatesville when I was going to the prison there, down in Texas. So he was an ordained deacon for our diocese, and he worked for the prison system as the chaplain at that unit. And so he would assist me when I would celebrate Mass. I was usually there for Christmas and Easter because in those years I was working as a vocation director, so I didn't have a parish. So that left me free to do that. And during Mass, and we might have 120 people in the room, he would be walking among the inmates and occasionally tapping one on the shoulder and throwing him out of the room. The first time I saw that, I spoke to him after the Mass and wanted to know what in the world is going on. And he told me this is one of the few activities where inmates who are from different units can be in the same room together. And some of them come here not because they want to go to Mass, but because they want to meet someone and pass a message or a note or some contraband or something. And he knows what to look for, so when he sees that, he dismisses them from the room. So, you were asking what are some of the unique challenges to prison ministry? Well, it's that. You have people who are fully reformed, fully repentant, now just trying to pass their time peacefully through this terrible ordeal. But you do have others who are there still finding their way, let's say. And, usually the prison, their ability to come to the kinds of things that we offer is predicated typically on their behavior. So if they're causing trouble inside the prison, they're not going to be allowed to come to the things that
the chaplain generally picks the guys that are going to be there. So we don't pick them. The chaplain does. And they have to, in a way, earn their opportunity.
But, Deacon Kenny Longbreak, who in this diocese was in charge of our prison ministry for so many years, such a wonderful guy. who's had ill health recently, and so we're keeping him in our prayers, he and his wife, Beth, both. But he used to movingly tell the story of how important a simple cake with their name on it could be, because they were doing a retreat, that was the Kairos retreat.
That's Kairos, yeah.
Yeah. So you might recount that.
Kairos is known for cookies, because cookies is realistically the hook. Those prisoners, they don't get cookies very much. So if they know about Kairos, and they know if they go, they're going to get all the cookies they can possibly eat, and they do. And so that's kind of a hook. And it's interesting when we start the retreat in a big circle, all the inmates, all the team members, and we go all the way around the circle and introduce ourselves. Some of the inmates will do that. Some of the inmates won't say a word. But just general information. We don't ask them about their families. We just ask them your name, where are you from, and what's your job here in the prison. That's the only kind of things we ask.
Sure.
We'll say something about our family. We'll say something about our religious affiliation, all that kind of stuff, but not them. But invariably, we ask them, why are you here? And I would say if there's 42 guys there, 20 of them are there for the cookies. That's where they start, for the cookies and the food, because they're going to get decent food.
Yeah, not why are you here in the prison? Why are you here on this retreat?
Yeah. Why are you on this retreat? And it's all about, we've heard, we know, we've heard.
Yeah.
But by the end of the weekend, for the most of them, there's an incredible transformation that takes place. And the last meal, what Bishop's talking about, the last meal, which would be Sunday at noon, after the meal, each one of them gets a small cake, birthday. It's not birthday cake. Can't call it birthday cake anymore, but it's a cake with their name on it. And it's brought out to them and it's placed in front of them. And I've seen guys sit there and look at that cake for 15 minutes and not want to cut into it because of their name. They've never had a birthday cake with their name on it. And eventually you tell them, you're either going to have to eat this cake or we're going to take it away, because you can't take it to yourself.
Right. That's
but
right.
it's, Deacon Kenny seen more than I have, but it's an incredible process that they go through. And a guy once told me that had been in Kairos a long time when I started. He said, I promise you, if you do this, every time you have one of these retreats, you'll see a miracle.
Yeah.
And that's true. It's true. It may not be a healing or something, but you will see a vast change in some of these guys. And that's what makes it worthwhile. You know?
Well, and it's so, it's a moving way of seeing that chaos that I was referring to. You know, for most of us, it would be hard to imagine growing up and never having received a cake of any kind, never having even maybe had a birthday cake. But for some of these guys, that's exactly what they grew up in, is that kind of chaos, to the point that they never had a birthday cake. And so to receive one, even if we don't call it that, it's got their name on it. It's so moving to them that it just touches them in a very deep level. You know, I can tell you as a confessor in jail and in prison, you know, if you say to someone, I'm going to hear confessions in the prison, they might be thinking, oh my gosh, people are going to be confessing their murder, their theft, their rape, whatever.
Sure.
Not usually,
Right.
Because, of course, by the time they get to prison, they've been through months, maybe even years of judicial system and in jails and so on and so forth, till they're finally sentenced and now they're actually incarcerated in a prison. What you typically hear are the kinds of things that people might confess on a Saturday afternoon, you know, on a college campus, for example. You know, these are now single-sex environments where they're living, and you know, they've got to deal with people who get on their nerves. They've got to deal with people who offend them in one way or another. They've got to deal with the limitations and the rules of all this place. The guards got on their nerves, whatever. So That's what I'm saying. They reached that point of conversion, but now that I have reached this conversion, I still have all these years left of my sentence. How can I, live that out here? I've also sometimes preached along the lines of the comparison between a monastery and a prison, because they both have cells where a person spends a significant amount of their time. And the difference between them, of course, is that the monks choose to be in the monastery. The prisoners didn't choose to come to the prison. But now that they're there, and now that they know because of this conversion that Jesus is there with them, then they can begin to relax into it, so to speak. They can begin to make some choices based on Jesus is here with me, so let me live as if that were true.
Father Kiet, when you're there and you're with these guys, how do you restore someone's dignity? How do you help sort of restore their humanity when you're with them? What's your approach? What are practical things you do with the guys?
When they came over there, sometimes some guy came first of all like out of curiosity. They learn about the presence of the Catholic priest, just wonder about something, and they came. And gradually, and I always treated them as our own brother. And by the time, and also with the hospitality. And as they gradually come over that one, and I don't know, because of me or because of your prayer or of your support. So they want to learn more about the Catholic faith, and surely along the line, I saw them really change and transform about that one. But first of all, out of curiosity, not because of the cake or some other, but at least there's something that they saw the beauty of the Catholic faith. They saw the beauty of the Mass. They saw how about the small group, our friendship in the small group, that one. Because with the other group at the same time, not very much friendly. But the Catholic group, they always have something special for that one.
Yeah. And they may have heard from other inmates.
Yes.
Yeah, who said, come with me, come. They don't have a lot of things to do, right?
Yeah.
So come with me. Okay, sure, I'll come. But then they realize, oh, there's something here. Yeah.
Their biggest fear is that you're going to do something that they find disrespectful.
Yeah.
Respect amongst that group is a big deal. You're not respecting me. I bet there are more fights in prison over respect than anything else. But we got a name tag for him. Can I put this over your head? You don't just reach out there and put something over one of them's head either. That's not respectful.
Yeah.
So you go through that whole process. So once they understand or accept the fact that you're not there to be disrespectful about anything, you're not going to make them say anything that's going to embarrass them or anything like that, then they're on your side. Then they're open to learning. And the biggest thing for them is to forgive themselves. That's a big obstacle for those guys. It's a big obstacle for those guys.
I always tell them that welcome over here and make sure that you sign your name here. Suppose that your presence is here. So whenever that one, when you need to go to in front of the parole board, whatever, and if you need my recommendation about the thing, so I'm willing to do that one. And they're very grateful for that. I told them, okay, now spend your time over here so fruitful. Don't waste your time. Whatever class or whatever we offer, just come over here in order to use the best of your time over here to improve yourself by signing your name. So on that way, the chaplain know that you are here. On that way, if we want to do something, we have some support, something in order to tell about that one. So they're very grateful for that one.
Yeah. Deacon Kinney developed a book based in the Catechism, a workbook that we can use in prison and in jail for people who want to receive the sacraments. Some of them were baptized as Catholics, but they were never confirmed, never received First Communion. Some of them weren't even baptized. So they can work their way through this book and catechism, because we get them both of the books. At the jail, we're constantly giving books away. So we say, for example, a lot of people get the Magnificat, that monthly liturgy magazine. We recommend to people, look, when you're done with that, take it to your pastor or collect them in the parish and get them to the jail ministry here at the Chancery, because we can take those into the jail. We can't take books in the jail that have staples in them, but those don't have staples in them. Or at least we have to remove the staples if the book has staples. So, there are a number of people who have received confirmation, who have been baptized. I've gone to the prison down in Holdenville several times to do baptism and confirmation. A memory that I have, one year we did that, and one of the sponsors of a man who was being confirmed had this really tall, heavily waxed or hairsprayed or whatever mohawk, tall fan mohawk. So he's the sponsor of this inmate, and it was awesome.
Just the image of it, yeah.
Yeah, just the image of it. And but so again, to Father Kit's point, don't waste your time here. Do something that will build you up. And so this is one of the things that builds them up, is to be able to complete their sacraments. Now, I don't know if they still have it, but one of our Benedictine monasteries, maybe the one in Collegeville, or maybe even Subiaco, I can't remember which of them, but they had an associate program for prisons, so that a person could become an associate member of the monastery by going through this formation program while in the prison. So they're incarcerated, but they go through this formation program and they become an associate member of the monastery. So again, it's a way of recognizing that people in the prison often have dealt with the things that brought them there. Now they're just trying to live life fruitfully while being in this place, and everything we can do to help them is good.
Yeah. When I was in undergraduate, I did prison ministry, and actually haven't since, but did it then.
Let me get your contact.
That's right. Yeah. No, I should go back, but had an incredible experience. But there was a priest at Benedictine College where I went to undergrad. His name was Father Bruce Swift, and he would take a group of us students. When I was 19, he came to me and he said, "Would you be interested in coming to the prisons with me?" And I said, "What does that mean?" He goes, "Well," he said, "I need you to play basketball." And me and a group of guys played basketball. So we would go to the prisons, and Father would offer mass, confession for the guys, and then we would play them in a competitive basketball match. And they would have a guy run the scoreboard, and they would, it was a game, and the prisoners would watch. And so we did minimum security. We'd go to the state pen in Lansing, Kansas, and we would do minimum security, medium security, maximum security. Sometimes we'd have to play 2 40-minute games, and we were cooked. And these guys are just waiting, all month.
They don't foul
to play us.
Do they? No fouling?
Yeah, no fouling. Yeah, and so I just remember all those memories of walking through the yard, and medium security was the very first time, and the guys, barking at us and giving us a hard time. And we would play, and I won't bore you with the details of the games, but at the end of those games, I remember thinking the whole time, because it was fun, as it was an adrenaline rush the first time, and then it was like, now we're just here to hoop, let's go. But at the end of every one of those games, those guys were so grateful to us. They hugged every one of us, just because somebody from the outside coming to see them and just to be there, they could not wait to shake our hands, hug us at the end, thank us. With tears in their eyes. 5 minutes ago, you were hacking me in the post, right, or whatever, and so it was an incredible experience, and extremely formative for me. And just that, Father, you mentioned at the start of this, accompanying them. Accompaniment is a big part of this, I think, and just being there, somebody from the outside, and so that rang true in those experiences.
It's interesting because you don't see them hugging each other.
Yeah,
you won't see that because that makes you look kind of weak if you hug each other, but outside people that go in there.
Well, and we can say, in terms of accompaniment, everybody doesn't have the opportunity. You can't just decide on a given week, I'm going to go this weekend.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way. There's a lot of training and approvals that have to be organized to be able to go in. But if you're at all drawn to that, you ought to see Deacon Allen or Father Kit, because of course you can.
Absolutely.
It's just an online training course that you go through, and that takes a couple of hours, and then you can be approved. There's a background check and all that. But everybody can't do that, but everybody can accompany these people in the prisons. And the two groups, we have to keep both groups in mind, the people who are incarcerated there, but also the people who work there, because it's a very difficult, challenging job working in the prison setting, particularly, in McAllister, where we have the death row. There's so many things that are problematic with the death penalty, but one of them is also the effect it has on the people who have to administer it, because they have to deal with all of that emotional toil that it brings up within the prison itself also. But to keep both groups in mind in our prayers, right? And accompanying people that way, to not forget the prisons, to not allow people who are incarcerated to just slip from our memory. Oh, those people deserve what they get, or something like that. The church's understanding of the death penalty has evolved somewhat, in particular because our prison systems are so good. In other words, we have very effective penal systems. It is possible for us, particularly in the U.S., to be able to incarcerate someone for their whole life without ever being worried that they're going to get out and commit further crime, and to incarcerate them in such a way that they're a relatively lesser danger even to the employees in the prison. And because of that, the church recommends that we not use the death penalty, because we don't need to. And so, since we value life, and since we value the opportunity of someone coming to a conversion in their life, we don't want to remove that opportunity from them by taking their life from them when it's not necessary. If we're concerned that they're in a continued danger, or if the demands of justice require it, we can incarcerate them for their whole life. And so, we constantly hear about and read about cases in which someone is exonerated from prison generally, or from death row. Some new evidence comes up or something. If there's even one, to be humble enough to admit that we're not perfect in our administration of justice and in our discovery of what really happened in these cases sometimes. If there's any kind of circumstance at all that would argue in favor of mercy, we ought to give it, lest we make a mistake.
If somebody wants to volunteer with the prison ministry, if they want to get involved, what does that process look like? Just initially reach out to you all?
Just reach out to Father Kit or myself, and
if you call the diocese, we'll forward you guys. It's easy to get you to Father Kit.
The diocese, they're great about that. But it's a 2-page form that you can do online. It's not state of the art web paging, but you can get it in there. They'll do a background check, and then you will go to, if it's your first time, you will go to about a 6-hour training program. After that, you don't have to go back to a face-to-face. You can do it online from that point forward. Now, those rules are subject to change anytime, but that's the way it is right now. So it's not an onerous process. It's not an efficient process. It does take time, but the time is on the part of the DOC. It's not on the part of you. You're just waiting for the most part. But we're trying to get more people to volunteer so that we can go into more prisons more frequently. That's the key. Okay. It's easier to get people to do a retreat than it is to get them to sign up for a regular rotation. Which I understand.
And like with so many things that have to do with service, we get more out of it than we put into it. When you go to a population of people that have this great need, and you see the fruit in their lives and in their reaction, that's very rewarding. So.
Absolutely.
And we could use some women volunteers too.
Mhm.
There's a women's prison in Muskogee that we're just beginning to talk to about the possibility of having some people come in there. So
Mm-hmm.
every prison's unique, all part of the same system, but they're all different, and they're all different because there's a different warden, and it is the warden's house. That's just the way it works.
And you know, the next time we have the women's conference,
Yeah.
we need to
Have
set
a
up a
table.
table
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah. Great.
Good.
Well, thank you, Father Kiet, and thank you, Deacon Alan Michael, for joining us today on the podcast, and thank you for your service in the prison ministry. It's an incredible witness, and yeah, we're excited to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.